Alright, picking up right where we left off here, day 6. In our last video, we looked at these boards here, and we're just going through these middle position versus big blind spots and seeing if we think it's an over-bluffed or under-bluffed spot. So far, these all seem to be under-bluffed, and now we're going to look at these low draw potential boards, and we're going to finish... we might not make it through all these today, but we're going to do it. We're going to take a look at least 4 boards. But I do want to get another session in tonight. It's already 9 p.m., so hopefully going to move through this pretty quickly. So we'll look at King 9-2 Rainbow, and that's a 33 range bet. Alright, just a range bet from position. Really quick, just gonna go through our predictions for big blind check raises against a 1/3 pot bet here. There's gonna be some queen jack backdoor, so it's like sets. For big blind, it's sets, 2 pairs, like some gutters, queen jack, jack 10, king or queen 10. Hands like this, the lower 2x, so like the 2-3 suited 2-3, 2-4, all those like lower 2x hands are going to be bluffs. I want to say like ace-5, ace-4 with a backdoor flush draw is going to be bluff raised a decent amount, and that's going to make up most of our bluffing range here. And let's take a look, see how close we were to that. So here we do have ace-5 to ace-3 with a backdoor flush draw, so we were spot on there. We 2 pairs and sets, king 9 raising. King 9 off isn't in big blind range here, but our strongest king X raising as well. King 2, 2 pair raising. Some of these middling 9X is raising decent often, which I missed. So good to see that. And then here are these weaker 2X holdings that we're going to be raising with. And then the gutters, like the queen 10, jack 10, favoring having a backdoor flush draw to not having one. So these are all raising. The offsuit combos at a decent frequency are raising, and yes, that's most of our raising range. But we'll just say like population is not going to be hitting this frequency often enough. So it's good to take a look at like ace 10 suited doing a good amount of raising here with a backdoor flush draw, folding just a pure fold when it's the hard combination. Alright, so let's look at turn play versus a call. We'll put like a 5 of spades out here, check. And now we'll look at if this is over bluffed, under bluffed, what we're thinking. So let's just look at as a whole in position strategy across all turns. So decent amount of mixing going on here. Highest betting frequency card is an ace. And let's look at in positions equity across all turns on this board. So in position has like pretty strong equity when called. Like on an ace, it's just crazy how much equity in position has. So basically betting on like any ace for the most part. So these lower cards, we're never using 30% sizing. We start mixing it in a little bit on these higher cards. What is? Do you want me to stop? Okay. So it's nice in the spot with these low cards. Like we're seeing more of that heuristic where when no straights, flushes, or not a lot of 2 pairs get brought in for big blind, then we're going to see some polarizing. So here it's like our main bet size is a polarizing bet because no straights are coming in for big blind. He's not going to have much two pairs on this 5. Like big blind's probably not going to have 2-5, 9-5. King 5 is definitely reasonable, but very few combos. So let's take a look at what specifically we're betting with on this turn. So turning a 5. Another heuristic we'll see a lot in PIO is when we're range betting a flop and we turn a pair, like if it's like a lower pair to the board, we're gonna often bluff with that hand with the equity we picked up. So ace 5 blasting off, and ace 4. Ace 2 mostly checking without the flush draw, which I think is similar to how I would play in practice. These hands continue barreling. King 9 2 pair. So our value range cutoff is king queen with the overbet. King jack we're not really overbetting with, so that's kind of like our value cutoff range is king queen, and then 2 pair or like it's king queen plus 2 pair plus sets. And then for our main bluffs, yeah, we're mostly gonna want to have spades here. So like if we're bluffing an offsuit combo, we're gonna highly prefer to have a spade. But even so, without a spade, we're still bluffing at some frequency. Weaker king starting to check now. All these hands checking. So this seems like a pretty like reasonable spot. So flushes coming in. So flush draws with a pair betting small. Flush draws without a pair are going big or checking. So like the smaller flush draws. Oh well, these okay. So 9 is a pair. 10-8 checking. Doesn't have a pair. Jack 8 mostly betting. Queen 8 going big. So with a pair we're sizing down, but without a pair we're polarizing with these bluffs, which seems very reasonable. Ace jack with the ace of spades betting very often. Interesting that this is such a high frequency when ace queen is not. But yeah, ace 10 betting a lot as well. Ace jack doing a lot more polarizing than ace 10. Not 100% sure for the reasoning there, but I guess this jack blocker is better than the 10. I don't know. But I would say like all these bluffs seem pretty natural. Like the 6-7 is a gutter. 6-5 turn, like this is, like I said, when you turn this pair after range betting flop and turning a pair like this, we're often going to be bluffing with our turn pairs. Like here we're polarizing with a 5-4, 5-6, doing some checking as well, but if we are betting we're going big. And then the 6-7 checking without a flush draw. Same with 8-7, just trying to hit the river. So I would say this is probably an overbluff spot. First board I would classify as an overbluff spot just because all these bluffs just seem so natural. It's like all the flush draws, all the gutters with a spade. And then the value range being the king queen off plus. So this seems like a relatively standard spot here. And if anything, people are probably overbluffing this than underbluffing. Like I feel like this is a hard spot to underbluff, just because all the bluffs make so much sense. Like there's no bluffs that seem, there's no bluffs that aren't like straightforward and obvious, essentially. So we'll classify this one as overbluffed. And now we'll look at ace 7-4. Was this a range bet? So this is actually a 33 mix. File, load tree. We'd a7-4 rainbow, right? Yep, rainbow, okay. Looking at in position, a lot more checking than I would expect. I usually just play this spot as a range bet, honestly. A7-4 rainbow. And because in practice I'm going to be playing this as just a pure range bet, which the EV of that strategy can't be that much worse than a 33 mix. Let's see. A7-4 rainbow. So this is range bet 30.8s and 33 mix. Okay, so it's like a whole chip of EV we're losing. So maybe we should consider checking on boards like this. It is easier just to range bet, and like the EV loss isn't that insane. But I guess it does make sense to want to check with our like King X and like kings, queens, jacks, these types of hands. It's just such an easy heuristic though, just to want to range bet on ace high. I'm actually going to switch this to range bet, just because like that's what I'm going to be doing in practice all the time. So I feel like it's probably better to look at that. Alright, so when we're range betting, we're only using the 33 size, never going big on this board. We bet 1/3. Let's actually go back quick and make our predictions for check raises. So sets, 2 pairs, gutters, open-enders. There's actually a lot of draws here, like 2-3, 3-5, 5-6, 8-5, 8-6, 2 pairs. So just so many bluffs going on here. Or like so many potential bluff check raises. So like gutters with the backdoor flush draw going to be preferred, and those are going to be most of the combos, like 2 pairs sets for value. We'll take a look. I doubt big blind. If big blind will have ace queen at some frequency, and I guess that probably would be a raise as well. So ace queen, and then everything else we mentioned. So we'll look, and yeah, ace queen is raising, ace jack suited as well raising. With a backdoor preferably, but raising higher than calling. With ace jack, ace 10 it gets closer, EV's about the same, and ace queen is the same. There's no difference between calling and raising. We'll be raising about half the time with ace queen, and the little sliver of the time big blind has ace king, we're going to be raising the flop with it. And I look at like these are kind of 22% raise frequency, and there's just so much raising going on down here with these combos, like the lower 4x, the sets, all the gutters, the 2 pairs. So yeah, this is gonna be a relatively high check raise, or should be relatively high check raise here from the big blind. All these types of hands. And I feel like in general, people just perceive this to be so strong. 9-6 and 9-5, kind of random bluffs getting tossed in here that I wouldn't be using too often. 8-7 and 9-7, I would always just call with. These are raising really frequently, actually. Wow. So this is a nice spot to look at. This is definitely a spot I'm under bluff raising with, from big blind's perspective. But we're looking whether it's over bluffed or under bluffed from in position's perspective. So good to see how much raising is going on here. We'll just say for now, big blind calls. And now we'll look at a random turn. Just put like the 10 of hearts out there. And let's look at big blind strategy. So basically playing over better check, checking really, really often here as in position when we get called on the flop. and it's basically because if we're range betting, we just have no reason to keep barreling with anything but our strongest ace-x, 2 pairs. So it looks like our value cutoff here, even ace-queen is shutting down on this turn really often, which is just crazy to me. I guess you can't really get it's hard to get 3 streets with this hand, like from a worse ace from big blind. And I guess this is also assuming that like big blind's going to be raising ace-jack at some frequency, ace-10 at some frequency. So when we just get a call, ace-queen is going to be dominating a weaker ace-x less often. If they're supposed to raise at some frequency, but I don't think in practice many people are going to be raising ace-jack, ace-10 on the flop from the big blind. Maybe, but I just don't think that happens as often as it probably is supposed to, or at least as often as PIO does. So our value cutoff is ace-queen. So ace-queen plus, so it's like all our sets, 2 pairs. Checking with kings, starting to check with, well, like ace-queen is where we start to check, but ace-jack is a pure check. Ace-9 and any weaker ace, it's not a 2 pairs, a pure check. So for bluffs here, we have our gutters, our Broadway gutters, at a very high frequency. Very high frequency for all these. So just blasting off on this turn with these Broadway gut shots. And I like this a lot because in position has ace-king, big blind doesn't. So we just have so many stronger hands as in position here. What's our equities in position on this card? 51. So let's actually look at in position strategy across all turns. Alright, so 10 is really a lot of checking going on here. On a king, we're betting very frequently. Ace is the highest frequency turn card. When the ace pairs, we just bet small. We bet small often. And a lot of polarization otherwise. Interesting how on a 9 there's like no polarizing going on, and I guess it's because we don't have so many gutters to bluff with. So strategy seems to be influenced a lot just by a Broadway turn coming in position, just because all those gut shots get opened up for us to be able to bluff with, whereas on a 9 we don't have that. So we look at how things change on a 9, a lot less polarization and a lot more of these smaller sizings getting mixed in. So on ace-9 our value cutoff still looks to be, on a 9 turn our value cutoff still looks to be ace-queen, but we can start betting more often with these weaker aces, ace-jack, ace-10, even ace-6, ace-5 getting in there, and that's just because we're not playing over better check. Like since we're mixing these sizings, we can increase our betting frequencies with these hands because we're not committing as much of our stack to the pot when we bet. So I would say in general, and so yeah, on the queen, it's just like on the Broadway turns, we're polarizing. Jack, I don't know why on the jack specifically there's so much of this small betting going on. But like you can see on a jack, ace-queen starts betting so much more. We're still have our Broadway bluffs, but we're sizing down a lot more. Like betting 1/3 pot becomes more popular than an overbet. Still overbetting with ace-queen plus here, which is mixing, but ace-king overbetting still, mixing, aces mixing. So it is kind of nice having this third pot at such a high frequency, because when you play overbet or check, and like we have pocket aces, so like for example on a 10 turn, it's like aces are basically pure overbetting, while we're blocking like so much of, like we just need big blind to have like a pair and flush draw, or like a combo draw, or 2 pair, or a worse set to continue. Like I'm sure in practice, it's just because we block, like most of big blind's calling range is going to be a ace-x, here when we're blasting off, and so when we have 2 aces, we just block villains continuing our range so hard. So interesting how on a 10, it's a pure overbet. On a queen, it's mixing a little bit more, but still mostly an overbet. On a king, it's a pure overbet. But then we look at a jack, and ace is doing a lot more small betting. And I'm not really sure about the reasoning here. I think the biggest takeaway from this spot is on a Broadway turn, in position gets to barrel off with all gut shots, like overbet with all gut shots. But then on a 9 or lower turn, we don't have all those gutters to barrel with, so we're not going to be betting as often, and we're not going to be doing as much polarizing. So, very interesting spot to look at here, for sure. But I would say in general, this is probably in practice, this is probably an overbluffed spot. At least a lot of these turns. Just because all these bluffs are so natural. Like the king 10, the king jacks. Like we have no bluffs that aren't... Okay, so 9-8 is the only bluff that's like not a gutter, or not like very obvious. That's doing this. This is the only kind of like random hand that is bluffing at a decent frequency. The rest of the bluffs make sense. So, be like Jack 10 going like King 10. All these gutters, pair like any pair that's not an ace is just checking. And then all the bluffs are just like so natural that it's hard for this to be an under bluffed spot, I would say. And then let's look on like a lower card, so like on a 6 turn. Now let's look at what bluffs in position is using. Okay, see now this is more of like an underbluff spot. Like these queen 8s. Well, actually no, never mind. That's a gutter. So all 8x is barreling. So that's a logical bluff. Our value cutoff here for in position seems to be ace queen again. And then our bluffs, queen jack with a club. So when we have a club, that's an airball bluff. So if we're going to be bluffing with air here, we just want to have a club, it seems. Queen 10 is the same. 10-9 is a gutter. And again with clubs most often. But that's a natural bluff. So it's all this 8x. So king 6 turning a king. Turning a 6. Like I know this is a general heuristic where if we're range betting flop and turn like a lower pair, we keep blasting off very often. And then like these other 6x's are 2 pairs. 7-6 becomes 2 pair. 8-6 becomes 2 pair. Are we blasting off any lower pairs? Nope, not really. Oh, actually, okay. So these 2s with a club is a pretty high frequency barrel. 3s with the clubs barreling a little bit, not as often as a deuce. 3 of hearts, 3 of diamonds is interesting. That's preferred over 3 of clubs, 3 of spades. Not sure about the logic behind that one. 5s with a club is an open-ended draw, and then 6s, 7s are sets. Everything else checking. So a lot of these bluffs are very just like logical bluffs. Oops, don't know what just happened there. What the hell? But anyway, probably going to be an overbluff spot here. Reason being, it's hard to underbluff. All the bluffs are just make so much sense. And now we'll look at medium draw potential with high card and shut it down after this. I feel like this video's been going on a decent while already, so we will shut down after this. We look at these. And I'm going to run to the bathroom really quick. Be right back. Fast forward through this if need be. range on his high card. King 8-6 rainbow. 33 range bet is our preferred strategy. It's King 8-6 rainbow, yeah. Okay. So 33 range bets. Check raises from big blind here. Sets, 2 pairs, open-ended draws. Gutters, preferring to have a backdoor flush draw. Lower 6x, some 8x might begin mixed in there, like some 8-7, 8-5, 8-9 with a backdoor straight draw. Sets, 2 pairs, open-enders, gutters, lower 6x. Yeah, that's gonna be. It's gonna should make up about all of big blind check raising range. So we'll check our predictions here. Range bet 1/3. We're looking at 20% raise frequency. Alright, so ace 5 off the bat. I already missed a raise on this. Why would ace 5 raise here? I guess having the 5 backdoor straight draw card. And the ace is still an overcard. An ace 7? Ace 9? Okay. So having a backdoor from the big blind with a suited ace. When facing a range bet, if we have a backdoor straight draw card and a backdoor flush draw, then our hand qualifies as a check raise. So like these weaker aces, ace 4 it has a backdoor straight draw, but it's obviously a lot weaker than the other ones. So not doing much with this one. And then here's the 2 pair, king 6, king 8, 8-6. 8-5, 8-7 is getting raised, which you guess are sets. Here's the open-enders, gutters, lower 6x we guess would be in there, 5-4 gutter. So pretty spot on with our predictions. Here's another lower 6x, 2 pair, 10-7 gutter, 9-7 open-ended, 9-8, so like some of the weaker 8x getting in there. So pretty standard check raise line from big blind here. The only one that is a bit of a surprise to me are these aces, but that could be a common heuristic on boards like this when calling with a suited ace out of the big blind, and that's definitely something I'm going to have to start paying more attention to when I'm calling with these hands out of the big blind. If we have backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, and an overcard with the ace, then it's probably good to check raise in general. So that makes sense. Let's look at a turn versus a call. And let's put a jack of hearts. And a ton of betting here from in position on this card. No straights are getting brought in for big blind. Some 2 pairs, but overall this is just such a good card from position. 53% equity on this card. So yeah, gonna be barreling a lot. Basically, it's an overbetter check spot. We could at least simplify it to that maybe. Value cutoff being king queen, because king jack is a 2 pair. So king queen is our overbet value cutoff, and then our 2 pairs sets. Interesting that king 6 is not polarizing here at all, like king queen is. Can't really think as to why that might be. With a queen, we're blocking big blind draws. With a 6, we're blocking sets and 2 pairs. So, I mean, we're betting, but we're not polarizing. But why would we not want to polarize with king 6 here? King 8 isn't even a pure overbet. King jack is. Why? would king queen be an overbet here, but king 8 and king 6 would not be. Hmm. Not sure about that. And okay, so this is interesting to see on this turn card for imposition. All these lower pairs are blasting off, and just right off the bat, after seeing this and seeing like this 5-4 gutter barreling off so much, these hands are checking. But this is going to be a very underbluffed spot by population. Like a lot of these, like I think ace queen, ace 10, people are going to barrel with at a proper frequency often enough. But like interesting to see ace 9 here. I don't think people are going to be betting with this. I mean, there's no draws that can come in. Basically, need to hit an ace on the river. King 9 betting with the straight draw blocker, but king 10 is not betting. So it's actually a very interesting spot here. On like king 10 is basically a pure check, but jack 9 is betting at 50% frequency. Like it seems like having a 9 in our hand makes us want to bet here. And I guess that makes it more likely that villain isn't on a draw if we're blocking this card, and it makes it more likely that he has some type of weaker pair. Could be the logic behind that, but really not sure. And just looking at this from right here, these weak aces continuing to bet with not much equity. Like 10% equity. One called. So yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very, very underbluff spot. Just seeing. So let's look at our strategy across all turns. So betting very often on the Broadway turns as in position here. And I wonder if on a 10, so we can see on the jack we're checking 40% of the time, whereas on a 10 we're checking 50% of the time approximately. So we can see the differential there. Queen, we're checking 50%. So I wonder if on a 10, which does bring in some straights for big blinds, if we're still using these lower pairs as a bluff. These might be the hands that start to check now. But let's put like the 10 of clubs out there and see. Yep, so 5's checking. And also now that it's a 10 of clubs, if we are going to be betting with these lower pairs, it's better for us to have a club. So if we put like the 10 of hearts out here instead. So 2's and 3's still barreling, but 4's and 5's start to slow it down. 7-6 betting now, which is taking up like some of the combos of 3's and 4's we lost. Those aces not betting as much. 7x betting at a decent frequency when we turn a gutter. This hand checking because it's top pair. 8-7 checking with a pair. 10-8 is now 2 pair. Jack 9 is an overbet. So our value cutoff on this card for overbet again is king queen, which is mixing 75 and overbets. And then our bluffs, we have our queen jacks, jack 9, yeah, so this is a very interesting spot to look at. Ace jack, ace queen. So like the natural Broadway bluffs, but this is a spot where it's like we're not bluffing these Broadway draws at like a complete frequency, and rather than like just barreling off with these all the time, we're using like some of these lower hands, which it's harder to replicate this in practice compared to like the other boards we were looking at, where it's like all the bluffs are just like the Broadway gutters and like the obvious turn bottom pairs and stuff like that. So this is definitely going to be a an underbluff spot, no question about it, in my opinion. At least like on average for most players are going to be underbluffing here big time on the turn. And this is going to be the last board we'll look at today. Very similar board. This was King 8-6 rainbow, and now we're going to look at King 6-5 rainbow. We have a special guest appearance. My dog Boba. Alright. So we'll look at this last board now. And it's a 33 mix. And this is a board where in practice I'm just going to be range betting, most likely. So let's look at the EV differential between a 33 mix and a range bet on King 6-5. Range bet 31.7. Okay, I remember last time I looked at this board, yeah, it actually prefers 66 mix, 33 mix. Range bet is close enough in EV to where I'm just going to simplify to that in this spot. And so we will load that tree. Yep, so we are King 6-5 rainbow. And seeing as King 8-6 was an underbluff spot, wouldn't be surprised if this board plays out in a similar fashion. Alright, so 1/3 pot range bet. We'll go back. So big blinds check raises here. 2 pairs, sets, open-ended draws, gutters, some weaker 5x with a backdoor straight draw, some 6x backdoor straight draw. Our gutters and open-enders are going to prefer to have backdoor flush draws as well. We're going to have our Ace-7 with a backdoor flush draw, Ace-4 with a backdoor flush draw, Ace-8 with a backdoor flush draw, Ace-3 potentially with a backdoor flush draw. Going to be raised here probably. And that should make up the majority of big blind check raise range here. So here we see the Ace-7 backdoor flush draw, pure raise, Ace-8 basically a pure raise, and then Ace-4, Ace-3 as well. And then we have our 2 pairs, 6-5 sets. King-Queen is going to be the top pair cutoff, but not at a very high frequency, as big blind's not going to have these combos very often, and not doing that much raising with King-Queen off. And then we look at here, our gutters are going to be raising, so like the 6s with backdoor straight draw, 5s with backdoor straight draw, gutter. So yeah, this part of like the board grid is going to make up the vast majority of big blinds check raises here, and then these aces as well, with the backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, and overcard to the board. But we'll say bet call for now, and we'll look at a favorable turn for imposition first. And basically, like, yeah, this is just an insane amount of betting. So right off the bat, feeling like this is going to be an underbluff spot, just seeing how much betting is going on. So our value cutoff for an overbet looks to be king 10 at a very small frequency. King queen is like the legitimate cutoff, which is betting at 100% frequency and mixing all three sizings, mostly preferring an overbet. Um, and on this turn, I'm probably just playing like a 75% and overbet mix. I don't think I'm ever going to be betting a third pot on this turn with hand. I guess, yeah, like with a jack, it makes sense to do this, and then check back river. So I actually could see this as being a reasonable play. And we're okay. So barreling off these lower pairs when we have them as in position. Ace 4, Ace 3, and Ace 2 keep going. So these lower aces, when the board remains rainbow, often keep betting when we have them in our range, as long as they don't have a pair. And then these are kind of the more natural bluffs. The Ace 10 gutters, a pure bet. King Jack 2, Queen 10, open-ended, makes sense. Queen 9 gutter. Yep. Queen 10, Ace 10 off. Ace Queen, Ace Queen. Yeah, I think people are going to have trouble keeping up with this frequency of betting on the turn. And then we can see here 10-9 gutter, basically a pure overbet. 9-8, 8-7. So 8-7 is an open-ender, pure overbet. 9-8 gutter, pure overbets. 5-6, 5-4. So I'm curious to see what hands, which of these bluffs we are doing what with on the turn. So like, if it's just a brick turn, what are we doing with king or queen 10 versus 7-8? Like, what hands are we following through with, and what hands are we giving up with? So we'll do this. Big blind is continuing range is any king. It has to continue versus an overbet. Any jack X here for big blind. Ace jack continues. And that's about, it's a cutoff. King jack is now 2 pair. Basically folding everything else. So if in big blind with 7-8, okay, so, but we're supposed to check raise on the flop with these combos, I see, okay. So we're not going to have them here. Jack 6, if this is ever in the big blind's range. Why is this showing up at such a low frequency? Wouldn't we play check call with Jack 6 from the big blind here on the flop? So bet 18. Oh, we just don't have Jack 6 as in position, okay. So basically it's like any king and ace jack, and then the draws are big blind's continuing range. So if we're overbetting as in position and we get called, we can assume villain's likely gonna have king X. I mean, that just makes up the vast majority of calling range here is king X. So if we're overbetting here, we can assume big blind has king X and play accordingly on whether we think, like, if we're gonna consider blasting off on the river, like, would he ever fold a king, is gonna be an important consideration. So we'll call and we'll just put like a brick river out and see what our draws are doing. Checking. So when we overbet with 9-8, we're following through. With spades and diamonds, we follow through with a jam. Not so much with the other suits. 7-8 is a pure bluff. Queen 9 is also blasting off. Queen 10 wants to slow down. Preferring to have a spade. So it seems like having a heart in general is bad. Whatever suit is most prominent on the board, if we're gonna bluff, we don't want to have that suit. So okay, so like, yeah, these higher gutters just give up on these rivers. We're not following through. If we overbet with king 10, we just check back river. King queen wants to bet for value, but we're not shoving. And even aces is also not shoving. So our value cutoff for a jam, it is only sets. Even king jack. So it's like kings and jacks make up our value range for a shove. So when 6s and 5s, so like our sets. So we don't have a ton of value jamming, which makes me think we don't need to have a lot of bluffs jamming. So even 2s aren't jamming, which I don't really get. Like if we're blasting off with 2s here and we hit a 2 on the river, I guess just because in position can have 5s and 6s. But it's like you'd think you'd want to get value from King X, like a 2 pair. Like I feel like I would shove 2s here sometimes. But yeah, it's just like our weaker draws we want to follow through with, and then we have all of these bluffs. So when we get here with ace 3, ace 4, we follow through always, never check back with these lower aces, and then the higher aces we just give up with. So I mean, this I would say is going to be an underbluff spot as well in practice. So hope that you guys got some benefit out of this. I feel like it's definitely beneficial looking through these spots. And actually, wait, I marked this as an underbluff board. Oh yeah, which it is going to be underbluff board for sure. But yeah, hopefully you guys got some benefit out of this. Wanted to run through these pretty quickly. Going to try to get in another session before it gets too late tonight. But I'll be back tomorrow to finish up this MP versus Big Blind, like in-depth overbluffed underbluff spot study. And then we're going to move on to small blind out of position 3-bet pots and do some analysis there for about a week. Probably going to spend like 1 week on a spot and then move on to a new spot. I feel like that's kind of a good way to do this and go through all these. But if you made it to this point, thanks for checking out the video, and I'll be back tomorrow.